beautiful. No, it's not a beautiful day at all. Actually, it's a nasty old day. It's chucking down with rain out there, and all is fine in this September. It's sort of Indian summery kind of thing. I hope everybody's well. We're live, which is good. Hope everybody's well. Lots of people joining us today from YouTube, which is great. Vimeo, all those good things coming online for the next 20 minutes or so with mortgages and CeMAP. Everything's happening in the CeMAP mortgage world at the moment. We've got this Brexit thing going on, this Parliament thing, and I don't know what's going on there, but of course the market's changing dramatically. We'll talk about that a little bit today as well. Got a number of topics which I want to be covering today. As always, if you want to, you can ask questions on YouTube if you wish to, or on Vimeo. Not a lot of people like to, they just like to sort of listen to as we go along as well. So I'm Paul Archer, as you know, and this is a live stream according to CeMAP and mortgages and the mortgage update for you. So let's get cracking with our first topic, shall we? Our first topic area along the way. Yeah, hi. Let's take a look at just an interesting topic, a small topic for you, and I've entitled this one transferring mortgages. Transferring mortgages. There we go. A lot of people get confused about this one. Transferring a mortgage book, effectively, is what we're talking about here. Now, the reason I'm talking about this one is that the mortgage deed, which is the legal contract, of course, that you sign when you take out a mortgage, gives the lender a number of rights plus you a number of promises. And one of the rights of the lender is to be able to transfer the mortgage to somebody else, another bank, with your permission, typically as well. And not a lot of people really appreciate what that means, and they get confused with securitization as well. Securitization, let's put that word up there for you. Securitization. There you go. Now, securitization is very different. I'll explain to you what's been going on here. The banks have been getting very competitive in the mortgage markets in the last few years. Regulations came in a few years back which stopped banks from kind of taking their profits from their investment arms and putting it into their domestic arms. They have to keep it all ring fenced now, which has meant that banks have actually channeled a load of money into their domestic market. So Barclays, HSBC, they've been putting a load of money into the UK mortgage market. So they've been pumping a lot of effort, a lot of cash to selling mortgages. So they've been bringing the price down. So it's getting incredibly competitive. So Tesco Bank decided, now Tesco Bank is a bank of the supermarket, of course, and they've got about £3.7 billion, 3.7 billion pounds lent as mortgages. They've been doing mortgages for a number of years now, and they've got this fairly large mortgage book. Now, they're not making any money from this anymore. In fact, they're making a loss, and they want to get rid of it. So what they did is they sold it to Lloyds, HBOS, Lloyds Bank. Proper name there for you, Lloyds. They sold this mortgage book to Lloyds for a nice premium as well. And Lloyds, Halifax, part of the Lloyds group as well, have bought this mortgage book, and they're going to maintain it, look after it. So effectively, they've transferred the whole mortgage book to Lloyds. So any customers of Tesco Bank used to get their sort of annual statement from Tesco's. They're now going to get it from Lloyds or Halifax as the brand itself. It's a complete and utter transfer. It's not securitization at all. It's just like moving money from one to the other. And Lloyds, of course, gave Tesco 3.7 plus a little bit extra back. There's a 25% premium on top of it as well. So they gave Tesco's a load of money. So that's how mortgages are transferred. It's not really a great deal more than that. Now, securitization is very different. That's where a lender, typically a specialized lender, and Lloyds as well would do this, wants to get some more money to lend. So what they do is they take their mortgage book. So Lloyds, for example, have now got this book of mortgages of 3.7 billion, and they've obviously loads more as well. They could securitize it if they wanted to. They could securitize that by holding on to the mortgages. The mortgages are still Lloyds mortgages, and you still talk to Lloyds when you've got problems and all that kind of stuff. But they put that money onto the market in the form of a bond, sell it to investors like pension funds. Those investors pay, they receive the mortgage payment money pretty much. They receive good interest, 1%, 2%, 3% return, but Lloyds still hold on to the bank. And of course, once these mortgages are redeemed, the people who own securitized bonds get their money back. So it's kind of like a loan, if you like. That's the difference between selling your mortgage book completely and securitization. So that's Tesco's. I got my current account at Tesco's. I wonder if they're going to sell that as well. I might have to move it along to somebody else. But it's such a pain transferring current accounts now, isn't it? We have all these standing orders and direct debits all go completely wrong. So that's just a quick update for you on transferring a mortgage book. Hope that's been of useful to you. Bye. There you go. Nice little topic there for you just to warm up on transferring mortgage book, which I read about at the weekend, which is interesting. Now the next topic for you, which I want to talk about, is to do with more in depth, really. And this is a question that came through from one of our Bootcamp people as well. And this one's to do with investment returns. And people get very confused by the different types of returns you can get on investments. Yeah, hi, welcome to short clip on investments, putting your money away to invest and getting a return. So I'm going to call this one investment returns. There you go, investment returns. Now, my brother-in-law, he's got himself some money. He's got a retirement fund. He's got about £120,000, and he's got this money, 120 odd grand, invested in deposit account. He's got that on a deposit account with a building society, and he's earning about 0.5% interest on that money. And he's looking to get himself a decent return on it. And of course, 0.5% on your money is nothing, but of course it is safe and secure. Now he's looking to supplement his pension. And he was saying to me at the weekend, he said, look, he said, I'm going to go onto a property auction in South Wales. I'm going to go buy 3 properties and rent them out. And I thought, well, yeah, of course you can do. That's a good option for you. Now the point is, though, that when it comes to investing your money, when it comes to putting your money away and investing it for a capital gain or an income, there are only 4 places really where you can put your money. So we put these into little sort of boxes there for you. There are only 4 places. The first place is cash, in other words, deposits, where my brother already has his money. That's the first sort of port of call, really, isn't it? Then you've got shares. Okay. So shares in the FTSE and in the UK stock market or abroad as well, of course. You've then got bonds, and then finally you've got property. Now these are known as the asset classes, the 4 asset classes, and they're not correlated, they work in different ways. Brexit, for example, will probably cause shares to fall. Bonds, interest rates are right low at the moment, but they're very popular with Brexit. Cash is fine, property might go down in value. Everything goes up and down, but they're not correlated. Now each of those gives you different returns, and I want to talk about those as well for you, because my brother-in-law is going to buy some property. So he's looking to buy property. Come on to that one in a minute for you. But let's just take a look at the different returns for them, first of all for you. Well, the first one then is shares. So let's put that one in there for you. The first one is shares. Let's just put that one down here for you. Now shares, investing in shares, of course, you get a capital gain, or the price of shares will fall depending on where you've invested your money. Typically, they reckon at the moment it's 4.2% is the yield from shares. These are dividends that you receive on shares, which of course are taxed with dividend taxation. And that's about it really. You get on average 4.2%. It does depend upon the share that you're in. It could be a heavy income bearing share, like a bank for example, makes lots of profits. The income from shares is directly related to the profits which the company makes. Oil companies are pretty good on dividends as well. And that's dividends from shares. But of course, these things can plummet. Value of shares can go down or up. Different shares, of course, will pay different dividends. Marks and Spencer's, for example, was in the press recently, and in fact this weekend. They've come out of the FTSE 100 now because they're shrinking. They've been paying the same amount of dividend for 10 years, and their dividend has now fallen. Vodafone dividends have come down as now, because I mean, mobile phone operators are beginning to not make so much profit. So that's dividend yield. So my brother-in-law could put his money into shares and get about 4% on average, depending on where he is. He's chosen property. So we're taking that property as well. So let's put a little ring around that one and put that one across here. Now he's chosen property. He's chosen buy-to-let property. He's going to go to South Wales and buy 3 properties, which you can do, of course, on auction, and he's going to rent them out. And the rent, of course, is not going to be as much as, say, in London, but he's still going to have a decent yield. And that really depends on what kind of income or where you're based. Now, typically, we're looking at sort of a 3 to 4% yield on average for a buy-to-let property. So let's put that one in there, buy-to-let. I think South Victoria's going to get quite a lot more than that, because he's doing quite well at that. He's going to get a higher yield because the house price is much lower, and the rent, of course, is lower, but as a proportion, it's pretty reasonable, isn't it? Now that's fine, that's a good investment, nothing wrong with that. You can, of course, go for a residential property, so you can go for your own property which you own, not buy to let. That's a resi. And the beauty of a resi, of course, is it's capital gains tax free, and prices of residential properties and buy to let properties pretty much are correlated, aren't they? What's going to happen to house prices? Who knows? Who knows enough what's going to go on with house prices? Nationwide index reckon that there's about a 1% increase in house prices at the moment across the UK. It does vary, of course, from place to place. They reckon that Brexit voting areas like the West Midlands, for example, house prices are soaring, which is pretty good, isn't it? And that's exactly how it should be. You know, different regions have different house price falls and rises. Now, the point about buy-to-let, though, is it a good investment? Well, it's done all right. The taxation changes massively. My brother-in-law's buying this as an individual, not as a limited company, so he'll have high rate tax to pay and all sorts of things, and obviously he's got to pay an extra 3% stamp duty on that. And if we do get a different coalition government come in, of course, different governments have different rules. If there's a coalition, for example, which I think there will be, say Labour, the Scottish guys as well, you'll have Lib Dems, maybe Greens, or if they all have a coalition, then they're going to force their various policies through. And Labour have said they're going to do this thing called right to buy, which gives the tenant of properties the right to buy the private property that they've been renting, which is quite scary if you're a landlord, isn't it? And there's going to be rent controls as well. They're bringing in rent controls, particularly in a city, to restrict the amount of rent that a landlord can charge. So yeah, there are issues around that as well, which is something you need to think about if you're looking at doing that yourself. What else have we got then? Well, we've got bonds. Let's get bonds in on it. When we talk about bonds here, we're talking about government bonds and corporate bonds. We're talking here about gilts and corporate bonds. Now, gilts, of course, are issued by the UK government, and they issue coupons. Strictly speaking, bonds issue coupons as well, but they call it interest. They're from companies, but they're all basically IOUs, really. Gilts, well, they're just less than 1% at the moment. New issue gilts, so the return on that is pretty mean, really. In fact, in Europe, in Germany, and I think it's Sweden, they have negative yields now, so you actually have to pay the government money to lend them your money, which is pretty scary stuff, isn't it? Particularly in Germany. The UK gilts, much less than 1% as well. Corporate bonds are different. They're issued by companies, and the return on those is dependent upon the risk of the company, the security of the company. Obviously, UK government gilts are guaranteed pretty much, because they'll never not pay one back. But corporate bonds are very different as well, and local authority bonds, that sort of thing as well, come into it. So you need to look at coupons. Again, charge of tax in a different way. You need to look that one up as well. What else have we got then? Well, we've got cash, which we've talked about. We've got shares, property, bonds. Now, shares, of course, direct are fine. You could put your money into shares via sort of unit trusts, investment trusts, OICs, of course. And REITs are very good at the moment. A REIT is a real estate investment trust, which is a collective in shares. But what REITs do, of course, is they invest in property. And there's a pretty good REIT available to you called Tritax Big Box. I love that, don't you? Tritax. Sounds like cleaning fluid, doesn't it? And what Tritax does, it invests in logistical warehouses around the UK. Now everybody, of course, is selling online now. You've got to store your goods in warehouses. You pass them when you drive down motorways, don't you? These great big warehouses that store all the goods. And their REIT invests in these logistical warehouses. And I was reading in the paper at the weekend that their particular REIT is giving you 4.8%. Ain't bad, is it? It's taxable, of course it is. But that's pretty darn good, I don't know. There's risk, of course there's risk in any share-based investments. Unit trust, OICs, investment trust REITs, of course, there's a risk as well. But that's a pretty good return, that. So at the moment, that's looking pretty healthy for the shares. But of course, there might be a stock market crash if we have a pretty bad recession or downturn. Who knows what's going on? Other than that, cash we've talked about. Final thing on cash for you, let's put it up here for you. National savings and investments. Obviously cash, you're looking at banks, building societies and stuff like that. But national savings is the government's savings arm, and they've always been pretty competitive, but they're withdrawing all their products now. They had a bond, they had a regular bond, which was very popular. That's all gone now. So the return from national savings is tiny. The reason is the UK government can raise more money through bonds at a much lower rate than they can from national savings. And in fact, if the Conservatives get in, they're going to spend about 13 billion, they reckon. That's all borrowed money. They're not going to raise any more taxes to fund that. So there's a few options there for you. Me, what would I do if I were my brother-in-law? And you'll be careful of giving advice to family, don't you? You don't want to do that. But if it were me, I would go for property, but I wouldn't go for buy-to-lets, effectively vanilla buy-to-lets. I would go for a holiday let. So we're in here, we're in a property, but we're talking here about a holiday, wonky property, isn't it? We're talking about a holiday let. Like sort of the Lake District or Edinburgh or the West Country down in Edinburgh this weekend, and there's loads and loads of holiday lets there. We're talking here about buying a property that you rent out to tourists for holidays. Now the reason why I would put my money into that, in which I'm looking to do in the next couple of years, is because fiscally, taxation wise, it's really good. Compared to a buy-to-let, vanilla buy-to-let, holiday let, all the tax advantages that buy-to-lets used to have, and they got more as well, lots of tax advantages in buying a holiday let. Demand is high for holiday let accommodation, and you've got things like Airbnb, which allows you to market these properties at a very low cost as well. You don't need to have big fancy brochures anymore or little holiday let shops. You can have Airbnb do it all for you, or whatever website you want. Prices in coastal towns tend to do really well. You've got global warming, which is making the temperature in the UK summer much higher, a bit wetter as well, but that's the way it is. It's based here in the UK, so you've got UK currency, so there's no issues there about currency movements, euro currency, that sort of thing. And during quiet periods, of course, you can head down there yourself and spend a weekend for free. It's not too bad, is it? Not too shabby, that one. So I would probably go for holiday lets when it comes to investing my money. But like always though, it's always best to build up your cash lump sum, put your money into a pension at an early age, of course. So rather than 120, my brother-in-law could have sort of $500,000 to invest and make his life a lot easier. Maybe you wouldn't have to go and spend 35 grand on a property in some town that's maybe difficult to rent out, but we'll see, shall we? So there's an update for you on investment returns. So that's been useful. Bye. There you go, nice little video that one. I hope that's been useful for you. I'm quickly looking down for any questions, any coming through on the investment returns. So all good stuff, that, all good stuff. All good. Yeah, holiday lets are all the rage, aren't they? People are staycationing more and more now, particularly with a downturn, recession coming in. People tend not to go abroad so much. The currency fluctuations, people are really feeling the pinch going abroad this summer. France and Spain, they're starting to realise their money ain't paying many euros because of the pound's been plummeting, as we all know. Okay, enough of that. Let's continue on, shall we, with our next topic. Quick look down for any questions coming in. Have a quick drink of my cup of tea. Check for any questions on YouTube. Here we go. Got a few people online now as we speak, which is good news. And all is good here in Cheltenham. Hope everybody's well. Yeah, I've got a few people watching on YouTube live. Yeah, let's have a quick look at one of the laws, really, one of the rules, which people get really bored with, you know, because MCOBs, ICOBs, all these COBs are pretty boring things. But you get half the exam on the thing. So I'm talking here about advising, is the topic really. Insurance. Advising insurance contracts. A lot of people ask me about this when they've got themselves qualified, they want to start advising on insurance. How do they do it? Well, first of all, you should do it. I'm always advising mortgage brokers to start recommending insurance to their clients. Why? Well, morally it's the right thing to do. You can sleep at night knowing that your client's got protection. It's needed by clients. They need protection. They need insurance when they're purchasing property or remortgaging properties. It's not expensive. Basic term insurance, for example, contents insurance, it's not expensive at all, and it pays a commission. It pays commission, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's not a dirty word, commission. You put the work in, you're getting your just rewards. But to do so, though, you have to be authorised and trained. Now, the FCA, of course, and our regulator require that you're trained and authorised. You've got to get your permissions, as they call it, to trade and advise on insurance. You've got your authorisation anyway through your network or through your direct regulation, but you've got to get permissions, and you've also now got to be adequately trained. Now, exam-wise, yeah, you've got your CeMAP, which gives you the ability to give advice on insurance. Woefully inadequate for insurance. You want to be looking at an exam, I think it's an R05 or something, an insurance exam, which is much, much better. But that's not an issue. We're talking here about insurance, we're talking about life assurance, we're talking about buildings and contents insurance, critical illness insurance, income protection insurance, ASU, don't say PPI. God, don't say that to clients, they'll get well turned off. So you're talking about different insurances here, aren't we? Now, to do this, to give advice on this stuff, you have to be either in your COBs or you have to be in your ICOBs. Remember, you're authorising mortgages anyway, whatever it is. Now, if you're an IFA firm, you may already be following the COBs rules. And if that's the case, you just apply the COBs rules to selling insurance. So no big deal there. But if you're not, then you need to be adhering to ICOBs as a separate one. And there's a number of ICOB rules which I'm going to quickly run through with you to see what you need to be doing. So just to quickly recap there. If you're an IFA firm, you're probably already on COBs, that's fine. If you're a mortgage firm and you're not on COBs, you're on MCOBs, you've then got to adhere to ICOBs. So you've got your MCOBs and your ICOBs. But ICOBs are pretty straightforward. So what have we got there? Well, there's a few things going on there. The first thing with ICOBs is you need authorisation. We've talked about that already, haven't we? You need authorisation. You must be authorised by the FCA to give advice on insurance. So that makes sense all the way around. You need qualifications. So you need your quals. I talked about it already. But in addition to that now, you need CPD. This is the first piece of CPD that's come in for mortgage advisors. Strictly speaking, you don't need any. Now, mortgage advisors now need 15 hours of CPD if they're giving advice on insurance. Not a lot of people know that, but you've got to evidence this as well. So you've got to have like an online portal or some kind of record keeping to show that you've had decent amounts of CPD. Now, 15 hours ain't much. That's 2 days worth of a course. Now, don't just go rock up at the first product provider course that they provide. You know, you get death by PowerPoint, call that CPD. It's a nightmare, isn't it? Now, get yourself some proper CPD and record it along the way. You need that as well. Eligibility as well comes into it, really. In other words, if you're selling or advising insurance, your client must be eligible to need insurance and therefore eligible to claim. That was one of the biggest problems with PPI. Essentially, PPI was a decent product. It wasn't anything wrong with it. But so many banks and building sites sold these things to people that weren't eligible, particularly self-employed people, because they came along to claim on it and they couldn't get it because it's only for employed people who are made redundant. So you've got to make sure that your client is eligible to receive payouts as well. Naturally, the client's also got to be suitable for the product. Now, this is with mortgages anyway. So you've got to identify needs, you've got to do your fact finding, you've got to look at suitability and all those good things as well. Then you have this thing called a statement. Let's write that down for you. This replaces the suitability report. The statement of demands and needs. Demands and needs. What a mouthful. Now that is a written document which replaces the suitability report as well. It's much the same thing. A decent mortgage brokers will have it combined into one. They'll have the suitability report and the statement of demands and needs for insurance built into it as well. Makes absolute sense. And the last point for you is cancellation rights. And selling insurance is, of course, the client's given cancellation notices, typically 30 days for products, although buildings and contents have 14 days. Maybe you'll get a question on that, I don't know, pretty boring question if they did. So buildings and contents 14 days, life insurance 30-day notice. So they're the basic rules really for ICOB. COBS covers that kind of stuff anyway, but you've got a little bit there on CPD, you've got this statement of demand and needs are slightly different as well, and the cancellation rules are slightly different. But make sure you get permission to give advice on insurance. It's the right thing to do, absolutely. I remember selling at the Prudential many years back. My first death claim made me realise how important insurance is. You know, I had a phone call from a client whose husband died. She was in fits of tears, you know, crikey. And the proof, of course, we dealt with these things, so I rocked up at her place and helped out. We were able to pay off her mortgage just as she owned the house outright and some extra money on top. So obviously it didn't replace the husband, but it certainly made her life bearable. So you know, that made me think about insurance. So you know, always sold it along the way. So make sure you do. So there's a little bit of things on ICOBs for you. Sounds like something Apple have brought out. Is it an iPhone, ICOBs, something like that? No, hope that's been useful. Bye. There you go. So advising insurance for you. I hope that has been of use to you. Okay, let's have a quick look down for questions coming in from YouTube or from Vimeo. All happening down there. And we'll finish off, I think, with a little sales idea, shall we? Nice cup of tea. Enjoying my cup of tea this morning. Absolutely chucking down out there. Pretty miserable day today. Oh well. Oh, nasty old day. But there we go. Yeah, let's take a look at a nice little topic for a little sales topic about. And I call this one, is this a fair question to ask? Is what I'm calling this particular video clip for you. Now, men are definitely worse at it. A fair question, I'm calling this one. Men are definitely worse at this than women, and that's been proven as well. A lot of salespeople have got this infliction as well. A lot of salespeople got it, and I was actually accused of having this on one of my very first dates when I was about 18. And the answer here, of course, is interrogation. Here we go, interrogation. See if I can spell that right for you. We're told to ask questions in sales. All of us are taught selling and questioning techniques. We're given like open versus closed questions and focus questions and rhetorical questions, and people go through all the theory of questions. People go through all the theory of questions, and then we know all about questions. But the problem is, though, we're given so many different questions that we end up starting to interrogate our customer, because we ask question after question after question. And I've seen it. It's awful. It's pretty painful. Poor old customer doesn't know where they stand. You're getting battered with these questions. So the answer here then is to soften your question, to sugarcoat it, as I call it. I talked about it before. And there's some things you can do here, but the best way to soften a question is to pre-frame it. Put something before the question itself, to pre-frame it, as I call it as well. And there's a number of things you can do. You could ask the question, is this a fair question to ask? There you go. I wonder, is this a fair question to ask, Mr. Brown? Da, 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 da. So you might be talking about life assurance and dying, all that kind of stuff. So is this a fair question for me to ask, Mr. Brown, when you're taking out this mortgage? Well, what might happen if your partner was to die? Oh my God, it's a pretty nasty question, isn't it? So all you're doing is just asking a question. A lot of people use different phrases. You could use the phrase, if you don't mind me asking. You could use the phrase, I'd be interested to know. It would be useful for me to know. tell me. You can use all sorts of ways of just preempting the question. So rather than just asking a question, come in with a nice little starter there, or pre-frame as I call it, and that will definitely soften the question, makes it far more palatable. Find your own phrases, don't start to repeat them. I mean, I like the ones, if you don't mind me asking, I use quite a bit. Is it okay for me to ask? I need to ask, or it's going to be jolly helpful if you can answer this question for me, and then you ask the question as well. So that way, of course, you'll never get accused of interrogation. Now, of course, I used to do this with my dates when I was about 18. I was taught to sell, you see, and then I was 18, 19. If only I'd known at the time, I might have had a much more fruitful sort of dating life when I was 18, 19. But anyway, life moves on from there. So just a quick little tip for you. I hope that's been of use to you. Bye. There you go, a little mortgage tip there for you when you're fact finding your clients. All good stuff, eh? All good. Hope that's been a nice little technique there for you to help you along the way. Okay, any final questions? Can't see any coming through. Remember, if you're on the Bootcamp, the CeMAP or Equity Release Bootcamp, you can ask me any questions and I'll get these answered on the live streams for you. We put the HD version of the live stream on the Bootcamp, and for those on YouTube, we let you watch it for a little while and then we take it out about a week later or so. So if you want to sign up for the Bootcamp, you get access to all these videos along the way. And if you're looking to get your CeMAPs before the end of the year and your Equity Release exams, get yourself subscribed to the Bootcamp. It's full of videos and techniques and tips to replace the textbook for you, really. So you get to see me all the time, which you might not actually like, but there we go. Nice cup of tea, this one. You go get yourself a cup of tea. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll be seeing you next Monday at the same sort of time. See you then. Bye. Ha! There you go.